in the GFC, I'd lost a portfolio of about $15 million of assets. It was my mindset of tough times don't last, but tough people do, that got me through. And I looked at my 2-year-old daughter, my 3-year-old son, and I just wanted to make sure that when they grew up, they were proud of their dad. Hi, I'm Andrew Wright, Principal of Professionals Southport, and this is the Andrew Wright Property Podcast. I've built a multi-million-dollar property portfolio, delivering a 7-figure annual rental income, and led my real estate team through thousands of sale and lease transactions. In each episode, I share real deals and strategies that will help you find, fund, and operate profitable property deals. The aim of this show is to provide education and build a community of like-minded investors who can collaborate, share insights, and help each other in each other's journeys. You can make excuses or you can make money, but you can't do both. So come and join us.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Andrew Wright Property Podcast. My name's Adam Bell, and this is a series that's built to get you thinking like an operator, where you'll discover practical frameworks, decisions, checklists, straight talk lessons, and property investment tips and tricks so you can make smarter property moves. This first episode is all about the person behind the playbook, Andrew Wright, his story, the crash, the rebuild, and the principles driving a cash flow first portfolio. No deal deep dives today, just the mindset and values behind the man behind the podcast series. Andrew, welcome to your own podcast.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure, and I look forward to building it with you.
Fantastic. Look, we've been talking about this for a while now, and I'm really excited about what this series is going to bring over time, and talking through your stories and deals that you've done. But today, I want to dive into who you are, where you've come from.
Sure.
But first, I want to start with the story that got me the most when we started first chatting, and this is, all about, I think, where your property journey sort of took a real turn, didn't it? So it was all around the GFC, wasn't it? Can you start by tell us that story?
Yeah, well, initially it was not property. It was a different industry that I was in, and over more than a decade, my wife and I worked over 100 hours a week building a financial services business. It was a financial planning firm specialising in self-managed superannuation advice. I employed 35 staff at its peak. We had a finance brokerage business with a few full-time brokers, a life insurance business with some full-time life insurance brokers, some accountants. We set up a self-managed super fund accounting business. So it was a fairly big sort of operation. And when the GFC hit in 2008, unfortunately, for those that can remember those times, almost everything suffered massive losses. And at that time, the no-win, no-fee lawyers came out, and most people get a feeling of how stressful it could be to get sued by someone. Well, I had over 100 people making claims against me, and over the following, during the couple of years there, at least a couple of years, I was spending 6 hours a day just defending myself with claims.
So this is, I do remember the GFC because as a person, I guess, round about that we're roughly the same age, same generation. I had a business at the same time, and I didn't know that bad economies existed.
Yeah.
I'd never seen one. I didn't realise economies could turn the way that did, and I'm guessing you're probably had a similar. So why were these people wanting to sue you? Explain what your product and services were to them, and what actually then drove them to be then litigating against you.
Well, we could probably do a 1-hour podcast just on that, but it's probably not overly positive. But at the end of the day, we in the financial planning community employ research companies to do researches on
Sure.
various investments, and
Sure.
we certainly only recommended products that were recommended by research companies, and our head office dealer group had what we called an approved product list, and that's all we recommended. But at the end of the day, the way the system works is that the lawyers find it a lot easier, rather than taking on a massive global fund manager who actually lost the money. Will take on the little financial planners
Gotcha.
because they have professional indemnity insurers,
Right.
and they hope to come to some sort of settlement with that. So
I see.
it was really tough times. Yeah.
I can imagine with that many people chasing you. So what happened from there?
Well, it really, from a mental point of view, I think I'll respond first of all. It got to a point where I didn't want to get up the next day. I was having a drink at night, uncontrollably crying, many nights, just scared to open my emails, scared to go to the letterbox to see what was coming the next day, and it was rock bottom.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so eventually I was forced out of that business for all the legal reasons that that came from that, and I just had to have a mindset that I had 2 kids at the time. My son was 3, my daughter was 2, and they were just so important to me, and I just had to try and emotionalise my future goals. I'd lost everything.
How much had you lost?
Well, I had about $15 million of assets, including business value,
Sure.
and other assets that had been almost wiped out at that time. I ended up wiping it all out over the next 12 months when I started basically gambling, trying to when I had to get rid of my business. I'll tell you the story. Like I was so down in the dumps, so I picked up this magazine, a Business Review Weekly, and they had a rich list for under 40s, and I was looking at this list, and I saw the bottom benchmark, and I was thinking, well, why aren't I in this list? And through all the depression, I said, well, I'm gonna show these guys. I'm gonna get out of this financial planning business. I'm going to get in the BRW rich list, and it was a sort of an ego came over me that I wanted something to look forward to, and I just started taking massive risks with in the share market with options accounts and a thing called contracts for difference, where you can really leverage up, and
Sure.
very unprudent gambles with very little risk management, and I just lost the lot.
So these were sort of almost Hail Marys to try to recoup what you'd lost.
Yeah, look, I lost $1 million in a day with one company that went broke, and multiple other days I'd lose $500,000 on.
Wow.
I'd have $10 million going long or short on BHP and Rio, and they'd drop 5% or go the wrong way, and margin calls would come in. I'd get cashed out, and I made $1 million a month twice. Just in my accounts, thinking I was God's gift to trading, but when stuff comes easy, it goes easy, and eventually I lost a lot.
Wow. So you were bankrupt.
Oh, I didn't go bankrupt. I fortunately I had an American Express card with $100,000 on it. I had a Citibank Visa with $100,000. I had some ANZ credit cards, and on paper, when I did my maths of what I have and what I owe, I was in the negative. I didn't go through bankruptcy, and I managed to hang on to the house, and somehow, kept on making
net worth
repayments.
was
my net
negative.
worth was negative, even though I didn't declare bankruptcy. So, one of the things, apart from the emotional goals I had about, what are my kids going to think about me, and I thought, well, imagine how proud I'm going to be if I fight through this.
And get back.
And so tough times don't last, but tough people do. And I kept on thinking about that, and advice my father had always given me in the past, that there's no such thing as bad luck. Luck will average out over a lifetime. So I just kept on thinking, well, there's got to be some good things happening down the track.
Which happened, didn't it?
Eventually, yeah.
So what did you do from there? What you're rock bottom. You've got nothing to your name. What you've dug deep mentally and said, I'm gonna get out of this.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, I wasn't able to go back into the financial services, and I had to find something else to do. I didn't have any other real skill sets or abilities, so I had been a real estate agent straight out of university in 1991, and that was the only other thing I'd really done. So I used the one credit card that I had 20 grand left on, and I bought the Professionals at Southport on my credit card.
You bought
Bought it on my credit card. I had no money.
an
The guy was
agency
really
office?
upset selling it. He said, "Oh, Andrew, it's got to be worth more than that." I said, "Mate, I don't have any money. This is all I've got." And he wanted to move on, and I bought his the phone number they'd been using for Professionals Southport, and the name, and then I just started a business from there.
Wow. Okay. So you've borrowed all the last money on your credit card. What did you get for the?
Just a phone number and the name Professional Southport. He'd already sold the recurring income from the property management rent roll, so there was nothing there. There was one salesperson that was on commission only. He came across, and I didn't know how to own a real estate business or even be a successful salesman, so I just offered him a really high commission rate. I think it was 80% at the time. I said, "Look, I'm your boss, but you need to teach me how to do real
How to
estate."
do it. Okay.
And I just learned from him how to sell. And then when I started making a few sales, I used that money to employ my wife. Worked for free at the time as the receptionist, as she always had supported me in the previous businesses. So the first few commissions went to employing a senior property manager who could help us build a property management business, because I had no idea, and she taught me how to grow the property management business.
Right.
So straight in, no, go and work for someone else for a while and learn the ropes. I was just straight in there.
So it sounds like you've always been entrepreneurial then, and so from that point, how quickly did you grow?
Well, the first 5 years I made nothing.
Yep.
Every cent I made went back into the business, and that was a massive sort of a learning curve again. I forgot how hard it was to build a business, and the previous businesses that I'd scaled around financial services were a lot easier because I already had the clients, and when we offered them a different service like life insurance or self-managed, I had the client base. But in real estate, I started from scratch, and it was 5 years I made nothing.
Really?
Everything went back into the business in wages and
Yep.
Infrastructure for that business. Yeah.
Right, but it's coming out of the ashes. You put in the 5 years.
Yep.
Then you're starting to make money again.
Then I'm starting to make money, and unfortunately, again, all the stresses that I caused my family at that point in time resulted in a separation with my wife, and the story goes on that the financial separation sort of happened, and again that sort of delayed me going out building a property portfolio because of the commitments to my partner in that binding financial agreement from our separation. So that sort of slowed me down again. But eventually, perhaps 5 years ago now, I started to scale a property portfolio, and it's so exciting. I'm only really just getting started scaling it, but it's I love it. I'm passionate about it, and that's why we're here starting the podcast.
Fantastic, and I do want to hear more about that. But I want to wind back a bit now and just know a bit more about who Andrew Wright is. Not the real estate agent, not the property investor. Tell me about your background, Andrew. Where did you grow up, and
Sure.
what was your childhood like, and what have you been on the Gold Coast your whole life?
Yeah, okay. I'm born in Hervey Bay, 1970, a fair while ago. Primary school in Brisbane, and then secondary school at Ipswich Grammar School as a boarder. They were the best years of my life. We just played sport every day and developed lifelong friends at Ipswich Grammar School.
Okay, so you liked boarding?
Absolutely
Okay.
loved it. Became a boarding master straight after school when I went to Gatton University. I loved it so much I went and lived at the Ipswich Grammar School
Wow.
and became a boarding
Okay.
master.
Yep.
Did a university degree in business, and then moved on and moved into the financial planning industry, and that's that's the story we got up to before. Yeah,
Sure. And so sport was something you were always
yeah,
very
always into
keen on.
sport.
What sort of sports?
I wanted to be a professional tennis player till I was 13 or 14, but clearly wasn't good enough. Middle distance running, rugby league, and after I grew up, got into martial arts and helped my two kids become black belts in karate as well.
Okay.
So now it's really any fighting sport, and rugby league is my passion.
Sure.
Mm.
And what do you think? Obviously, even in what we've talked about, even just to now,
Mm.
obviously you've got an incredible work ethic. What do
Mm.
you think? Drove where did you get that from?
Yeah, that's an easy one. So my dad was an ex-Wallaby rugby union player, a fantastic sportsman all round, first tennis, first cricket, best rifle shot in the school, all these types of things. And right from an early age, dad was always into goal setting. And in business, him and mum, they literally worked 100 hours a week in different businesses. Dad had day and night pharmacies, which was his main profession.
Mm-hmm.
And he got into property development as he got a bit older to get out of the 100-hour-a-week pharmacy business.
Sure.
So look, right as a young kid, we were slaves to mum and dad, helping them in various businesses, and we were never given anything. It was, you get $2 if you mow the lawn, you get $2 if you wash a car.
Mm-hmm.
And right from an early age, I was out knocking on doors when I was in primary school. Can I mow your lawn? Can I wash your car? Oh, there's some 20-cent recyclable Coke bottles there. Can I pinch them and take them away for you so you don't have to worry about it? We'd go down the shops and cash them in, and then that was our pinball money or Space Invaders or whatever we did at the time. So, yeah, I was right into it as a young fella, watching mum and dad and doing those things on the side.
Fantastic.
Mm.
So was it? You said that you went into you became a real estate or got your real estate license pretty much straight out of school. Was it your father that doing his property development that sort of gave you your first interest into property?
Yeah, so Dad, in the late 1970s, built a couple of blocks of units on Bribey Island, did very well, and then, like most developers do, wanted to take on bigger projects as his education grew, and unfortunately he went for one that was a bit too big, and then around 1980, interest rates hit 18% and costs blew out, and Dad got into default with the lenders, and there was 5% penalty interest. I think add that on to 18, he was paying 23% interest.
Wow.
And Dad did the same thing that I was later to do, and he lost everything at that time. So again, didn't declare bankruptcy, but had to cash in his whole of life insurance policies and just living day to day trying to survive. So that was my introduction to real estate, but I knew there was some silver lining there from Dad's first couple of property developments, and that's certainly where I developed an interest in real estate.
So you saw both sides pretty early on then. Yeah. Has that shaped your mindset now? Because that's one thing that really impresses me about you as a person. You've said it early on with what happened with the financial services business. It was this mental toughness, this this belief in yourself. Was that shaped by anyone in particular? Was it your father?
No doubt, it was the old man. He's passed away now, but he was. He taught me all about goal setting and just doing the best you can, and without doubt the mindset came from him. But having said that, as I can't overstate the importance of having a couple of kids there. Like, you have a responsibility as a father, and when you've got a couple of young kids there, it's you can't quit, can you?
No, you've got to keep going.
Yeah, that's it.
You've got to keep going no matter what.
Yep.
All right, so you've gone and you've bought your real estate agency. It's starting to after a lot of hard work. You're obviously learning a lot about property. You're selling a lot of homes and things. Was it all residential, or was there commercial involved in those early days of the real estate agency?
The agency is predominantly 85% residential, so it's only in recent years started to diversify out into some commercial transactions and commercial property management. So it started with residential and remains mainly residential.
Sure. Okay. And so it was obviously, I would assume, that the buying of the real estate agency, the starting to be a real estate agent, that led you to believe, led to you saying, right, property is where I'm going to build my wealth.
Yeah, 100%. Look, when Mum and Dad were going through a tough time, straight when I got out of university around 1991, they left our Gold Coast residence. We moved to the Gold Coast around 1990.
Yep.
And they moved to the Northern Territory to run a pharmacy, and they left us with this big 6-bedroom house that they owned at that time in 1991. And I sort of said, look, Dad, what are we going to do here? And they actually said, well, you don't need to pay us board anymore. We're leaving you. We feel a bit guilty about that. We'll be gone for a few years. As long as you pay for the rates and the insurance, you can do whatever with your house. So that was my first little entrepreneurial idea back then, as I rented out 4 of the other bedrooms for $50 a week.
Perfect.
I mean, brother and I were in 2 rooms,
Yep.
and the other 4 rooms we rented out for $50 a week, and that sort of cash flow. We call it house hacking now, but that it's funny now. 30 years later, the rooming accommodation industry is such a big thing these days. But I was doing that with my mum and dad's house straight out of uni just to survive.
There's $200 a week straight out of uni. I mean, fantastic. I mean, I want you to like cash flow first is one of your main principles,
Absolutely.
isn't it? So can you define cash flow first in your words? I mean, what does that mean in practice?
Well, I think it's important from an individual property perspective, and secondly, I'll answer that question from a perspective of scaling a portfolio. So, not my opinion, but statistical facts from the tax office, which most of the listeners are probably familiar with, is 99% of investors in Australia own less than 5 properties. So, why is that? The bottom line is most residential investments are negatively geared. So in really simple terms, like, you have to really ask yourself a question. If a property investment is running at a loss of 20 grand a year, how many of those investment properties can I afford to own? And again, not my opinion, but fact, 99% of Australians don't own more than 5 for that reason. So most of my portfolio is focused on commercial property, which can typically have 3 times the net rental income or cash flow. And you've got to ask yourself the same question. If I have an investment property that makes me 20 grand a year, how many of those can I afford to own?
It's a lot more, isn't it?
As many as you can get your hands on.
Absolutely.
And where I love the discussion around cash flow is when you talk about capital growth, because at the end of the day, if we look back the last 100 years in this country and others, land values have doubled every 10 years or so. So you ask yourself another question. If land is going to double again in the next 10 years, how much land do you want to own?
As much
as you can. So it's that cash flow that allows you to continue buying. So when I hear other property experts talk, you've just got to go for capital growth. Well, if you can only afford to hang on to 1 or 2 houses, you might get some great capital growth. But at the end of the day, if you can own 100 properties, commercial properties, and not many people get to that level, but I'm trying to demonstrate a point. You want to own as many as you can, so that if land values do double in the next 10, 20, 30 years, you're going to benefit from that. And without the cash flow, you just don't have the serviceability to do the borrowing. The second response to your question from a portfolio perspective, I think, to me, in my opinion, is that when you develop a portfolio that has large cash flow, you earn the right to start buying other properties with no cash flow, such as at the moment I own several vacant blocks of land with no cash flow. But I'm able to tolerate no cash flow on those because the rest of the portfolio pays for it, and I'm not relying on my personal exertion in my business just to fund those payments.
Yep.
And I love being a hybrid investor of searching high cash flow, but doing some property development on the side, getting development approvals to build on land, which forces appreciation, and forces equity a lot quicker than just passive investing.
Yep.
So cash flow is important at an individual asset level, but also when you're scaling a portfolio, you tend to have a different view of cash flow and its importance as well.
Now, if this isn't piquing your interest, then nothing will. Talk to me about your portfolio. How did it start? And let's talk numbers. Let's talk the 5 years.
Sure.
Talk me through it. Where did it start? How has it grown? What's it worth?
Okay. Well, let's just start with from a mindset point of view, important to know that I'm not lucky. I mean, the first 3 properties I bought, I sold and lost money on.
Okay,
So
that's a really interesting
yeah,
fact.
yeah. So before I even started my real estate business in 1992, I bought my first house in Loganholme for $88,000. I sold it 7 years later for 90. But you take away the commissions and the stamp duty. I held it for 7 years and lost money.
Wow.
The next 2 commercial properties I bought, I lost 75% of my money on those deals. It was a risky type of asset class, and they went bad. So my first 3 transactions were terrible.
I'm surprised that wasn't it. I'm surprised that wasn't the end of property for you.
Yeah, so look, you can lose money, and just it's interesting because there's so many podcasts. I listen to 3 podcasts a day probably, and everyone is so used to making money because in the last 5 to 10 years, property values have just gone up. But it's just important for listeners to understand that there's been many long periods of time where rents don't go up. Rents can go down. Property values can go sideways for long periods of time. And I've seen that and suffered that before. And it's going to happen again for sure. It's an absolute mathematical certainty that we will have a market correction at some time. So this is why cash flow and these types of things are important.
And I can't wait to delve into that in so much more detail as we move along with this podcast series and look at individual deals that you've done and put together and the theory and the reason behind it, which you're touching on now. Because another thing that you've mentioned to me on numerous occasions is highest and best use. I mean, what does explain that to me?
Look, if you were to Google that, it'd come up with something along the lines that the highest and best use of a property is whatever will produce the greatest economic benefit given the current zoning of the land.
Right.
So when I think of that, I have different properties in different asset classes, and you don't always need to use a property to its highest and best use straight away, but it's important to know what that is when it becomes vacant. So just off the top of my head,
give me an example.
I have a vacant block of land in Ipswich in the CBD. It's used as a car park. It's got a really good cash flow there. There's nothing there. It's just a car park. But if the tenant there ever stops paying me rent, I know the highest and best use of that site is a high-rise building, and it previously had development approval for 160 units over a 15-storey development. Now, I don't have the money to build that at the moment, but down the track, if that tenant ever starts renting it as a car park that I've got there, I will joint venture with someone else or get a new development approval for a high rise. And clearly that's going to produce a lot more revenue and also a lot more benefit to the community than just a car park.
Sure.
So that's the highest and best
So
use
realising what that is, even if it's not for right now.
Exactly.
Okay.
And especially when it comes to exit strategies, not just forcing value, but exit strategies. If you've ever got to sell something, knowing that you can build a high rise on a block of land, a higher density zoned site is obviously important to know that that's the highest and best use. I didn't finish off answering your question about the portfolio at the moment, Adam, but I've developed starting to scale a portfolio now. It's still minuscule compared to some of the gurus out there, but I have residential assets, an 8-bedroom, 8-bathroom rooming accommodation property. I have dozens of retail properties from a couple of gymnasiums, cafes, hairdressers, beauty salons, real estate agents, massage shops, retail convenience stores, a couple of office properties, industrial assets. My favourite asset class at the moment, I've purchased about 6 truck depots and industrial outdoor storage facilities. That's my
Wow.
favourite asset class. A couple of years ago, I bought a church even. So a really, really diversified portfolio of assets and different asset classes.
Wow.
Mm.
And what would you say, am I allowed to ask what that the net worth of that is roughly on paper
Oh
at the
well,
moment?
the portfolio is more than $20 million at the moment.
Wow.
But as I said, it's I'm just starting to scale it now.
Sure. And so
Mm.
this is, I mean, to a lot of people, that's going to seem like a huge amount. To others, that's going to
Mm.
seem like a little bit. We're all on a
Mm.
journey, aren't we?
That's
And
exactly
part of
right.
this whole series is for you to
Mm.
share your journey and to
Mm.
share your knowledge and to create a community around something that you're absolutely passionate about.
Absolutely.
That I'm going to say you're already very successful at. But
Mm.
as you said, this for you feels almost like the start of the journey.
You're right. It depends on your background and your level of thinking. I mean, remembering in my mid-30s, I was, on my tax return, I was earning more than $1 million a year back then. So that's 20 years ago. So when you go from there to zero, your mindset changes. But yeah. But to me, to answer your question, I mean, I went walking on the beach last week with a mate of mine who's building 13,000 houses at the moment. So I'm a small fish in the big pond.
It's all perspective, Andrew. It's
Yeah,
all perspective, and
yeah,
we will
yeah,
have a big range of people listening to this who will think you're the big fish in their small
yeah.
pond. But
Mm,
I take your point.
mm,
All right, well, tell me this podcast is your idea. It's
mm.
something you've wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah.
You're going to get some amazing guests to tell their stories and
Mm,
share their principles.
mm.
You're going to do the same. So, who is this podcast for, and who is it not for?
Look, this podcast is for anyone who's wanting to make money in property and scale a portfolio for their families. What I'm wanting to do is not just talk theory, but bring real life deals on the properties that I've bought, and more importantly, bring in other guests that are far more successful than me that can teach all of us about the strategies they've used to accumulate wealth in property. Who it's not for, even though I have had a long history in financial services, we won't be discussing share markets, cryptocurrencies, foreign exchange, commodities, anything like that. It's really focused on residential and commercial property.
Sure.
Mm.
And probably just make the point, and there is a disclaimer at the end of this, that none of this is financial advice. None of this is to be construed as financial advice. Always get your own independent advice. This is just for people who want to listen and learn principles.
100%. And I've had enough time responding to legal claims in my
That you
lifetime.
don't
So
want any more.
honestly, get lawyers involved, get accountants
Yeah,
involved whenever you do something, and the value that they can add, especially around structuring your investment property portfolio, is very important.
sure. All right. What promise are you going to make to listeners about how this show is going to run?
Well, I promise to provide real life examples of how to make money. Like I do have a small list of transactions in different asset classes that I've done that have really done very, very well in short periods of time. And I know some people that are far more successful than me that will really give examples of how you can make money. It's just not theory; it's real life stuff, examples. And what I think people will see after a few episodes when I cover the different asset classes is hopefully they'll be able to pick up an asset class that relates to them. And if they're a tradie, for example, that's always worked out of a shed, they may find industrial properties for them. If they're a doctor working in a surgery, they might want to buy medical assets, and
Yeah.
everyone will find a comfort zone. So hopefully someone will find an asset class that they can specialize in and make some money out of.
Excellent. What I'm really excited about is I think, there's a lot of people who out there when they think property, all they think
Mm,
of is residential.
yeah.
But this is going to be so much more, diversified on and thinking, way outside the box on why am I just buying a negatively geared home?
Look, I listen to podcasts every day, and I have to say probably 75% of them when they come up on my phone are residential in nature. So I'm certainly not going to duplicate all of the content that they produce because that wouldn't be adding value. So look, the beautiful thing about property is there are so many ways to make money. Even myself, I've gone from asset class to asset class to asset class. I'm now tending to favour truck parking depots. That's my asset of passion at the moment. But there's so many different ways you can make money, and hopefully this podcast can bring on experts in each of those asset classes so people can actually learn some different strategies that most of these other podcasts won't cover.
Sure. Can I challenge you on something? Going forward, can we do the odd episode on a deal that didn't work, that you lost money on, so people can learn where the mistakes are as well?
Absolutely. As I said, the first 3 properties I bought, I lost money on, and there are other ones that I've held for a long period of time that haven't been successful. And we can probably even go through a few deals that I actually purchased, put under contract, and didn't proceed with. When I did my due diligence, I pulled the pin on the contracts and tell you why they weren't going to stack up.
I love that because we have just spent 5 minutes talking about why this podcast is going to teach people how to make money and go through deals that did. But I don't think there's many people out there talking directly about deals that didn't and the learnings that come from that.
Absolutely.
Because they could be just as important as learning the ones that did. So absolutely love that. So rolling forward, I mean, this is going to be released weekly. What do you want to get out of this podcast?
Well, it's not what I want to get out of it. It's I want to share. So one of the philosophies that I read recently from a guy that I admire was, when you come to the end of your life, you will be judged not by how much you accumulate, but by how much you give. And I have been fairly selfish trying to recover and on my business journey for most of my life, and I want to give back a fair bit. I want to help other people, and this podcast really is about hopefully putting together an online community of like-minded people who want to help each other, who can collaborate, share ideas. It could even be sharing town planners and engineers and architects, building designers, talking about deals that didn't work so we can all help each other improve our family situation with investment in property.
Sure, and probably a good point now to make that there will be in the show notes a link there to be able to join your community. It's starting from now.
Yep.
There will be Facebook groups. There'll be, all sorts of ways to collaborate going forward. So if you're listening to this now and want to be part of this journey and part of this community, please do use that link and give us your details and of course, obviously, give us a follow, give us a like, and make sure you never miss an episode going forward. But look, I want to just quickly sort of finish off now, Andrew, with just a little bit of fun. Quick fire round. Give you 5 or 6 quick questions. First things that comes to mind. What's your favourite food?
Fresh crab sandwiches, without a doubt.
Crab sandwiches.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. First job, actual job.
An abattoir at Gatton while I was at university, sweeping blood and guts off the floor.
Wow. Okay. A book you recommend?
Cashflow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki.
A habit you're proud of?
5:30 a.m. every morning I exercise.
One you're trying to break?
Scrolling on my mobile phone like really late at night when I should be going to sleep.
Best advice you've received that actually aged well?
With ordinary talent and extraordinary perseverance, all things are attainable.
Fantastic. Now, I know one of your things that we've talked about is that you're going to sign off each and every episode with let's call it a saying or a little piece of advice. What's your one that you want to start off with?
A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Perfect. I love it. Andrew, thank you for opening this series with such honesty and clarity. Now, we'd love it, as I said, if you could like, share, rate, and of course, follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes. Now, in episode 2, we are going to be unpacking a deal. the office to residential conversion play, and how to identify underutilized space, navigate compliance and operations, and convert it into a durable cash flow while avoiding common pitfalls. So it's definitely not one to miss. That will be episode 2. My name is Adam Bell. The star of the show is Andrew Wright. Andrew, thanks so much for joining me. I can't wait for the next episode.
Thanks, Adam. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for listening to the Andrew Wright Property Podcast. This is all about building a community of like-minded investors who can share real-life stories, experiences, and collaborate with a view to helping each other. Join us. Get in touch through the link in the show notes. I look forward to you joining me on the next episode.